Today I'm going to talk about refining this Juniper Rigida Raft. At first glance you might think that this is a forest, which it is. It's trained in the forest style. But I would just point out that this is a raft, meaning it's one tree laid on its side and all the branches have been pulled up to make a forest. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 trunks. So 8 for the Chinese, a very lucky number, but no matter, it looks very impressive. And the tops of one of the tree has died. It is a group that I imported from Japan again in the mid-90s or the late 1990s, and over the years I've put it into various pots, and it is now having what is called a holiday. I don't always leave all my bonsai in small pots for a very long time because they tend to go downhill. So what I've done with this tree is to give it a holiday to get all this vigorous growth. So you can see how heavily it's grown, and the tree is now strong, and I'll bring it back to its former glory, as it were. Another word about Juniper Rigida. Juniper Rigida is the Needle Juniper. Needle Juniper is not very popular now because it's a very spiteful tree. It's not called a Needle Juniper for nothing. It is so sharp, the needles, that they literally pierce your fingers and pierce your hand. So I really should be wearing gloves to work on this. And although we're talking of Needle Juniper, there are many types of Needle Juniper. This one is called the Yatsubusa, and in Japanese, Yatsubusa refers to anything with small leaves. So this is the Juniper Rigida, the Yatsubusa variety. If you come close, you will see how fine the needles are. I will just cut 1 or 2 branches and just show you. This is a long one. It's almost like the Procumbens juniper. The needles are only about 1/4 inch long, which is about what, 10 millimeter long? So the needles are really fine. So this is the very small foliage Juniper Rigida. And now this one that I've brought with me, this is from another plant I've just pruned off. You see the lovely juniper berries on this tree. And this is called the Long Needle Rigida. And the Long Needle Rigida is really spiteful. The needles are so sharp that they pierce your hand. So it's a very nasty tree. One of the reasons why I believe Juniper Rigida is not so popular now is because no one likes to work with the prickly trees. What people like about Juniper Rigida, especially the large long needle variety, is that it has very dramatic trunks. And the driftwood is so dramatic that people use the Juniper Rigida trunk or the body, and they graft Itoigawa juniper on it to get that dramatic driftwood effect. So much about introducing the Juniper Rigida. So can you see all this long growth, about 18 inches long, has grown in the last 2 or 3 years, and this is all this year's growth. About 2 inches is all this year's growth. So if you don't check it, it will grow very long. So that's why I've let it grow to make the tree strong again. So all I have to do is to give it a haircut. No great shakes, and at the end of the session I will show you how I make cuttings from it, because junipers, like all the junipers, are very prolific and they propagate very easily from cuttings. Now each tree needs to look like a tree, and because the needles are long, I will cut it back. Whether I start from the bottom or the top is immaterial. Generally people start from the bottom and work to the top, but with a forest group like this, I could even work from the top. Remember that there are no hard and fast rules. What people seem to like the way I teach bonsai is that I try to disregard the conventional wisdom. I don't like to refer to them as rules. Some people do refer to them as rules, but there are no such things as rules. I like to think of everything in terms of guidelines. They're just guidelines to a way of accomplishing the end result. Also, you'll find that inside each of the twigs, there's a lot of debris. And that is not because it's a weak tree, it's just that over the period of time, the needles have become so congested that it doesn't get light, so it does. You notice I'm wearing a glove now because even this Yatsubusa type is quite prickly. And you can see, look at all the dead needles falling here. This is all the dead needles. So this is what you need to do with most trees, especially conifers, pines, junipers, the lot. Just keep it cleaned, and by doing that you will encourage air to circulate in the tree. Now each of these trees I want to get a more conical shape, so I need thick branches I'm going to cut off and make more of a dome shape. I know that not many people will have material like this on hand to work with, so I'm lucky in a way. Many of these old specimens, they come from Japan. But I'm sure you can sometimes find native material. I know that in America they have some beautiful junipers, native junipers that are extremely nice to work with. So much debris in there. Bearing in mind that this is such a vigorous tree, so everything you cut back will sprout again. And all that new growth is very, very exciting, bright green. Looking at it from every side, you see how much dead there is in there. So this is just a question of running your fingers through it and cleaning it. This you should be doing with all your trees. If you have a lot of trees like we do here, we have thousands of trees, you can't get around to all of them, so it's a never-ending job. In England there's an expression like painting the fourth bridge. The fourth bridge is a very long bridge in the north of England, and it is so long that it's a steel bridge and it has to be painted from time to time. So by the time you've finished one end, it starts to look at the other end. So by the time you come to one end, you have to think of painting the other end again. So trees like this, literally like painting the fourth bridge. Never-ending job. The more I look, the more debris there is. Okay, if you have just 6 trees or a dozen trees, you can spend every waking moment cleaning it, grooming it. But in a commercial nursery, you've got to decide on priorities, what time you have to spare on what job. This, believe it or not, used to be one of our major exhibition trees. Dead trees that, not dead trees, dead branches that have no scope for making into gins or sharis and driftwood effects, we will just remove them. In an ideal world, you've been grooming this all the time, but I still feel that from time to time, we need to give these trees a holiday or a break. Just let them grow with what we call gay abandon, that means unchecked, just to retain its health and vigor again. Some people release the trees and put it back in the ground or large pots to grow strongly and then reshape them again. Look at this lovely growth that there is. And there are some berries as well in there. And the berries, juniper berries, grow very easily. They germinate extremely prolifically. So the 8 trees, I reckon it will take me at least 8 hours to go through a complete tree. So I'm just showing you the start of one side of the tree. And lucky to have someone filming it, otherwise I have to self-video, which I don't like doing. I have here a new cameraman, and he is one of our new employees. You will see him. He's called Tyler. I'll show you Tyler in a minute. Are you interested in bonsai, Tyler?
Oh yeah,
You
for
do?
sure.
Yeah, okay. So much debris, just cleaning it. Look at all that debris that comes out. And let me show you again the famous bag trick or paper trick. So each tree should look like an individual tree. So I'm trying to create visible branches again. See, you can't see the visible branches here, but I want to go through each tree and create the pads so each pad becomes visible again. Then you notice that I alternate between using the Felco secateurs and the ordinary bonsai scissors to trim. This sort of thing you don't need the branch cutters. I watch some people using a branch cutter to trim this. This is going over the top. Now this is so big, I think I can take it all off. Look at such a big chunk. It's interfering with this. Even this, look at all that. Cut it off. These are going to be kept as cuttings. I will show you what we do with those. Left to their own devices, the long branches hang so much. Okay, they may look like a healthy tree, which it is, but it spoils the definition of each of the branches. We want to show the pads individually. So the image that we're trying to create from a tree like this is really like that of the Scots pine in the UK and in England. We have the native Scots pine, and they grow tall and lanky like this. It's a typical Scots pine type of image. You see, look at that. That branch is about 6 inches long, far too long. I don't need all that. Remember, you always got to leave some green. You can't cut the branch back to wood, because if you just did that, then the rest of that branch will die. So always leave green. So it may seem a bit severe, but you're doing the tree good. It will regenerate again. But again, you may keep asking, why have I left it so long? Again, let me reiterate. I've left it long because I wanted to make the tree grow strong. And now that it's strong, I'm bringing it back to its former glory, or the glory of this tree as an exhibition bonsai. Now, why can't we keep bonsai in its exhibition state all the time? I think it stresses the tree. It's like having a beautiful lady dressed up for a ball. She can't be dressed up as if going to a ball every single moment of the day. There are times when she got to take her makeup off, clean the makeup, go to bed. So same with the trees. They can't be in that prime exhibition state all the time, 365 days of the year. There are times you've got to give it a rest, let it grow again. So it's quite amazing how similar all living things are. You know, trees are almost like human beings in a way, the way they grow. So because growing things have a period of rest and a period of growth, so like human beings, they have the same cycle. So that's just from this tree, and look at the amount I've taken off. I've taken off more than, I would say, 70-80% of the foliage from that tree. So this tree, I didn't want to chop too much off. You see, that's bare wood there. If I chopped it back to here, it wouldn't break back. So I've got to leave a little bit of green, so hopefully it'll bud back over there. And when it buds back, I will then cut it more to give that conical appearance. Just home in on that tree, I will not show you a better view. Bring in the large white plastic bag because I want to show you the whole tree. So that is how that entire tree looks like now. Like that. So each tree is going to be shaped like this. So you can see the visible branches, space between the branches, and that is how I'm going to tackle the entire tree. The entire tree. Now this is a hairy monster. Look at that. Look at that chunk there. So this is a bit much, so let's tackle it. Look at that, about 10 inches of growth. Lovely cuttings. Except that the species being not so popular, you know, sometimes I wonder, is it worth making cuttings of this or not? That dead bit is becoming a feature. Wait till you see what I do with that. We'll bleach that. The back side of this tree. Again, because it hasn't got light, there's some dye back there. Even with trees like this, where the trunks are very slender, I still need to show the trunk. So the general principles still apply. Showing the trunk is all important. If you don't show the trunk, then it doesn't look like a tree. It just looks like a bush. So that didn't take long. I don't like to boast, but I do work fast. I will look, see how much we're cutting off. Look at all that stuff. So much has been cut off. So that's just a couple of minutes work really. Let's show you what I've achieved so far. You can see this is a tree that we are trying to show like that. So although I don't have to have a white plastic bag behind me all the time, I can visualize in my mind's eye what the shape is turning out to be. I find that sometimes people can't visualize a triangular shape without actually drawing a line, but once you do more and more, you will soon get the hang of it. Then these tips I will cut back. But I'm always conscious not to leave bare wood, because if I leave bare wood, then that branch will die. So I always have to leave some green tips, what we call the sap pullers. I did read someone comment on my videos. He says that you talk about the same thing all the time, but you know, I talk about the same thing because although the principles are the same, and I don't think there's any harm in reiterating general principles, because that's how you learn. Pardon me if you find it boring when I say the same things or re-emphasize the same principles. Now again, because these were imported back in the mid-90s, it's been in the UK for 30 years, I would say this tree would be easily 70, 80 years old. Many people ask me, how do you judge a tree's age? A lot of it is done by extrapolation. Extrapolation meaning that you can always work backwards. You know how fast certain trees grow. Every tree has a certain rate of growth. Deciduous trees grow faster than conifers. And once they're put in pots, they don't grow as fast as trees which are growing in the open ground or in large pots. So you can always work backwards and figure out the age of a tree. So although I may not have grown the tree from a cutting or a seedling, by observing the species that you're dealing with and judging how it has been grown, you can always judge the age of a tree. You can never tell the exact age to the nearest year, but you can certainly within a margin of error of 10 years, say that this tree is maybe 80 years or 70 years. I still remember back in the 1970s and 80s when I first started doing bonsai, and there were trees that had been imported from Japan, and every single tree was either 50 years or 100 years or 200 years old. How they ever judge that, I don't know, but a lot of it is hype. Before I go too far, I'll just point out that because this is a juniper, like all junipers, unlike the pines, the bark does flake. So if you home in Thailand and see, you see this bark here. All junipers flake, and as the tree grows and expands, the bark peels off, and you've got to clean it. So one of the chores when you groom a tree, especially junipers, mind you, you don't do this with pines, only with junipers. You've got to clean the bark. First of all, you remove it with an implement like this, And after you do that, I will show you towards the end. We will then take a wire brush and brush the trunk. So all this has to come off. You see, you put the knife in there, you get the bark off. Take the old bark off. But don't go too mad and cut into the cambium or the live wood. You're only removing the dead wood. It's like cutting your fingernails. It's like that. And once you remove the bark, then you can get the brass brush, and then you can brush the trunk like that. You see the lovely red color? That is what the underneath looks like. I'm rushing it a bit, but you really have to remove all the loose bark and then brush it with the wire brush to reveal that lovely red color of the juniper trunk. Can you see how the red is appearing there? That's what you want to show. But that really should do towards the end. So I think I've more or less done this tree. Now let's look at this one. If you look at it from here, you can see how this tree looks like. So I've done 2 of the 8. Now this one, which is the dead tree, I'm going to whiten the entire top there. It'll look quite nice. This is a live bit there. So I will encourage this live bit to continue to grow. But the dead bit I will cut off. But junipers, by their nature, do suddenly lose branches and die. That's how you get the beautiful natural driftwood. So when that happens, don't be too worried. It's in their nature to behave in that fashion. Was this part being so tall, it wasn't able to pump water or moisture to the top. And again, this is what happens. You see these juniper berries, they turn black and ripe, and if you sow these seeds, there are quite a few of these berries, they will germinate very easily. And of course, juniper berries are used as a spice for cooking, and they're also used for making gin. If I were a person who made my own hooch, you could use it for making gin. Look at this massive house. Oh, look at the berries falling, all these juniper berries. I will save them all. I don't like to waste anything. And this is where you notice that wearing the glove, I can get into all this prickly stuff without hurting my skin too much. Just a word of warning, some people I've found over the years, they are allergic to junipers. The junipers causes a rash in the skin. I'm lucky enough not to have any allergies, but some people cannot stand junipers because they have this allergy. Their skin cannot tolerate touching these prickly trees. Oh, look at all that debris that comes out. It's all that dead foliage. So I'm cutting a little but leaving the green. That's the general principle. So each long stem I make sure I leave some green at the ends. Sometimes I notice that there's bits of old wire left on the trunk. I should remove it, otherwise it can cause a lot of damage. Now, because this tree is really a tree growing towards the back, I think people may consider it not to be very important, but I still want to make sure that it lends itself to the overall composition. That means it should fit in with the rest of the trees. So I'm not so concerned about the detailed look at this stage, but when I finish pruning the entire tree, I will have to revert to it. So I've done a rough pruning. Let me continue doing more rough pruning. I think we've been filming non-stop. Now this tree, look at it. Rather than going to the top, it's just cascaded down, but I don't want it to grow taller. I could easily take these up as one of the new leaders, but let's see if it fits in with the rest of the design. Again, because it's not getting light, some of these are dying, but the rest are all strong. Don't need that long. When you prune live tree, it's almost like unwiring a tree. When you unwire a tree, you learn a lot by just watching how the tree was wired. So it's thinned out quite a bit. The top of this is too dense and too out of shape or dominating like a flat umbrella. So we need to make this more dome shape or conical shape. Some dead branches which you can make into driftwood effects, gems. Look at that long branch. So that has been cleaned. So I need to show each tree individually. So unless you see each individual tree, it won't look like a forest. So I reckon we are 3/4 of the way there. Quite a difference from when we started. There we go, look at the debris I've created so far. Okay, so let me introduce you to Tyler, if you stand there. Tyler is our new member of staff. So he's been here, what, second week?
Yeah, second
Right.
week.
So I hope you enjoy your work here.
Yeah, it's really good. It's
Right.
really fun.
So you will learn as you go along. So there you go. Thank you, Tyler, for filming.
No worries, thank you.